It's hard to believe how time flew by, and we're already introducing our closing keynote. It's a very special keynote. It's a father and son, Jason and Declan Huggins. And you already heard a lot about Jason, both from Anna and from him, but I'll summarize again, because I think Jason's accomplishments are very, very impressive. So he started Selenium and Appium projects. He's a co-founder of Sauce Labs, and currently, most recently, he's a founder of Tapster Robotics. And his robots have been featured in Popular Science, in Wired, and TechCrunch, and they have been purchased by companies across US. And currently, Jason and Declan both live in Chicago. Declan goes to 8th grade, and he loves to play video games. And I think they can't wait to start sharing their exciting talk with you. So,
all right, cool. Thank you.
So I'm Declan Huggins, and this is my keynote presentation, a guide to glitches and how you can spot them.
And sorry to interrupt you. This will be the last time I interrupt you. It's a two-part talk. He'll give the first half. I'll come in and for the second half. And we practiced this earlier, and it's almost 50-50. We'll see how the timing goes now. Oh, wait. Yeah, you got the mic. All right, catch you later. Good luck.
So in this, I'm going to teach you what a glitch is, what I think a glitch is, and it's a 3-step process, basically, on what it is, how you can find them, and what I actually have found. So step 1, of course, is what is a glitch. It might also be referred to as a bug, but they're a little bit different. Step 2 is how to find the glitches, like actually going into something and finding a glitch. Step 3 is the result, what I actually found. So we're going to elaborate on let's get started. So let's elaborate on step 1. What is a glitch? So if you look on Google, you'll find the literal definition of glitch, which is a sudden, usually temporary, malfunction or irregularity of equipment. This could mean if you start up your computer and you hit the escape key, the computer might shut down. It's a glitch. It's not meant to happen, and it's an irregularity. Now, the word glitch started to become popular in around the 1960s, but is of unknown origin. And some synonyms or similar words to glitches are bugs, loopholes, or backdoors. Now, my personal understanding of a glitch is that they're more of things that you find on a computer. There are glitches in other places besides on a computer, but usually on a computer you find these sudden mistakes that shouldn't have happened. Now, the differences between glitches and synonyms are a few things. Backdoors are usually backdoors, secret entrances to something that give the person who found it something special like developer access. Loopholes, they're usually something not intended to find. So if you go to one restaurant, you buy fries, you get a free drink at that other restaurant. If you get a drink, you get free fries at the first place. It's a loophole that allows you to get infinite food, which you shouldn't have. And bugs and glitches are similar. However, bugs usually think of something bad. With glitches, I think of them as good things that I can use to my advantage. Now, the difference is between glitching and testing is like you find the glitches through testing, but testing is also a job. Now, glitching lets the games I play, because I love to play games, a lot easier for me. I play mini games. Probably I've downloaded over 50, maybe even 100. And some of them are interesting and fun, but really boring, and I want to speed up the process. So I like to find these glitches or bugs that I can use to my advantage. Sometimes you hit a paywall or a certain point where you have to pay to get past it and continue to progress in the game. And you can sometimes jump over those paywalls by just playing the game. Now, by finding glitches, I can also help the developers of the games or apps, because usually they're losing out on money when I find these glitches, because they make their money from the in-app purchases or some other thing, And when everyone already has everything because of a glitch, there's no need to buy more. So if I find a glitch that lets me duplicate items that you'd usually buy with real currency or money, then the developers wouldn't make any because people just already have everything. And also, testing is a job. You're doing testing for money. Glitching, I do for fun in my own free time on games that I play for fun. And there are a few types of glitches and ways to find them. So the two types I think I know of are finding glitches that find new things, places that you weren't supposed to go. You might call this an out-of-bounds glitch, which from games like Pokemon Fire Red, there have been glitches that let you go into the void, where you're out of the map. And they go all the way to Pokemon Sword and Shield, which just came out like a week ago. People are already finding these glitches or bugs that are fun, not really bad. And then there are four ways of finding these glitches. You can use developer tools, which you find in Google Chrome. You use Inspect Element. You can total brute force, where you just go in and you find the glitch with a little direction to where you're going. And there's time travel, which I'll elaborate on later, but it's really fun to mess around with. And then there's save in progress. Save in progress, you usually want to make sure it works, otherwise some bad things or good things in this case happen. So, step 2 is actually finding the glitches, how to find them. Now, the first step is looking around. Find something that's glitchy about the game or app. This could be anywhere from the app freezing, from jumping physics being a little weird, to being invisible in mirrors, or you can see an entire website's code. Now, second step is trial and error. This means you have to mess with the glitchy aspect of the game and just keep doing whatever made the game glitchy. There are a variety of ways to do that. And then the third step is the results. What you actually find from messing with the glitchy aspect. This could be from the app entirely crashing. You jump to the moon. Your character is upside down. I don't know. And sometimes you find the bugs or you find the glitch, which is, I think, of as a good thing. Now, step 3 is the fun part, the actual glitches. This is where I'm going to show you everything that I've actually found. Not everything, but 5 really cool glitches. So, first one is using developer tools. What are developer tools? They're something you access in Google Chrome or other things using the Inspect element, and it basically allows you to view all the code. And you can also change some things using the developer tools that are either temporary or permanent. You find most glitches using this because Google Chrome has Google Chrome is a really good way to look up stuff, and there are billions of websites you can go to and just mess around with Inspect Element. And also, it does involve a little bit of trial and error to find these glitches. So I'm going to show you my very first glitch when I was just a tiny, tiny kid. This is not me, but it might be an accurate representation of what I looked like. My dad introduced me to a game called A Dark Room. You can go to it at that website and play it. It's a really simple game, but boring and tedious. You can only do one thing at the start, which is lighting a fire. How boring is that? So if you play through it a little, you get to this point where you have wood. And I wanted more wood because who wouldn't? Yeah, I want everything. So I opened up the developer tools by going to Inspect. And you can change things temporarily by just messing with all the stuff here. But if you go on the console, I realized you can type commands. So I typed a command saying, set all stores to like 1 billion. And then to actually get it to update, I had to stoke the fire and waste 1 wood, and then magically I have 1 billion. And so I just kept on playing the game, and it was super fun. It sped up the process by 1 billion times. And I probably would have never actually played it if I hadn't found the glitch. and I told some of my friends, and we all generally had a really fun time. And now the second glitch using developer tools is on Duolingo. You've probably heard of it. So I have an account, I have 3,000 XP. If you've ever played Duolingo or gone on it, not a lot of people have that much XP. It would take you weeks. But I got in a few minutes with a glitch. So usually you would go through and do all the regular things like phrases and travel, but I don't know a ton of Spanish. I just wanted to beat my dad. So I go into stories and I'm like, ooh, these give me more XP. They give me 24 XP every time I do it. So I go through it and I'm like, there has to be a way to do this faster. And the way to do it faster is by opening up the developer tools. And now, you don't just have access to the console elements, you also have other things, like the network. So in it, you can see all the XHRs, or basically little commands that the website sends to its servers to tell what this user has been doing. Now, when you complete it, it comes up with saying complete. Then, you can replay it. What? So now, every time I press the button, it gives me another 24 XP. So I'm like, well, I have to use this. I do it around 50 times, which I am about to speed up like by a ton. It takes 2 minutes maybe, and so now instead of getting 24 XP every time you do this, I just keep doing it. Every time I press replay, it gives me another 24 XP, which means I've broken the website. Usually, you would barely get any. Like all the other people in my league, they barely have anything. So my overall XP is 4,000 before the glitch, and I had 3,000 league. Now when I reload the page to update all the information, I have 5,000 total. And now in my league, I have 4,000, which means I've gotten about 1,000 XP in like 5 minutes. And my dad, he was working on it for like 3 weeks and he got like 3,000 XP. However, because I alert the developers about their glitch, because people would usually buy lingots up here and they would make real money. However, I didn't need to buy any lingots to get power-ups and boosts because I already had all the XP I could ever want. And developers patched it within a few months, and as of today, it was patched, and you can no longer get 1,000 XP in 5 minutes, which is good for the developers. Not very good for me, but at least I'm helping out the people who actually created the website and are trying to get people to learn, not to have fun like me. So, another way to find glitches is with total brute force, at least almost entirely. So what is it? It's another way of saying trial and error, which means you kind of just go into a website like Duolingo and mess around until you find something. So usually you would find the glitches with enough information that'll point you in the right direction, or you can just go in and do whatever. You hopefully already know something glitchy. Now, the first glitch is in a platform of games called Roblox. You can go to the website here, and it's a game called Notoriety. In it, you have something called equipment, which you can place. Oh, it's a little hard to see. You might be able to see, but... Okay, look at the TVs to see. Anyways, there's equipment, and this equipment you shouldn't be able to interact with, but it has a hitbox, which means you can touch it and stuff, and so you can jump on this equipment. So just imagine me standing here. I'm trying to place this box, and when I look down, the equipment is placed relative to where I'm looking, so there's this imaginary box in front of me, and when I run forwards, it goes forwards too. But then I can jump and land on it and keep on jumping, which means I can jump until that little thing gets to 100%, which is when it actually places. So now I can jump out of the map. I can get into out-of-bounds places. So if you look at the TVs, now I'm underneath the building. I was never meant to see this. This is only for developers. And again, the developers for this game are right now working to patch the glitch, which is really great because it means I am helping other people by glitching, and you should try and find glitches too. It's really simple. And now on another Roblox game called Phantom Forces, it has a weird sliding mechanic. So imagine me up against a wall, and when you crouch down or slide, your head goes inside the wall. So if I go in between two places and then crouch down, my head and entire body is now inside the wall. And I can move around and do stuff inside the wall where I was never meant to go, which personally I think is really cool, but you might not because you don't really know about this game. That's why I'm going to move on to another set of glitches using time travel, the best part, what you've all been waiting for. It's not actually time travel, it's more like manipulating time. So how do you do this? Well, it's not so much actually manipulating time, but it's manipulating what the computer thinks the time is. So you can go in your settings and change the time, which there are really easy ways to actually counteract it by making your game online or something, but here are a few time-based events. Sometimes when you log into a website, you get a reward. Sometimes it gives you, on your phone, you get a little notification saying, hello, good morning. You are now in New York, so we've updated your time settings for you. However, in a mobile game called Idle Miner Tycoon Cash Empire, it's just meant to make the developers of the game money, but it does have a hint of fun, but it has that paywall. They want me to pay $5 to continue playing the game that I could just download a new one, but I decided to keep playing. I went into my settings on my phone, and if you turn off the set automatic time, which I was in Chicago when I filmed it, and you just set your time to a day ahead, the computer thinks, oh, well, it's officially November 3rd, you haven't been playing for an entire 24 hours, here's your however much money this is. I was away for 1 day and 1 hour. I didn't know that. I thought I was just away for 2 seconds, but it gave me a reward, so I was happy. And lots of games have this glitch on phones and sometimes computers, but this is when you don't need Wi-Fi to play the game, because it's only relying on what your phone says and not what the servers say. So this is a fun glitch to mess around with. You go on your phone, find a game that gives you, or an app that gives you a daily reward, and then just try changing the time on your phone and see what happens. Now, the final set of glitches is how to find a glitch while saving. Saving is a little bit messy. Sometimes your work doesn't save, sometimes it does. Sometimes the order of how the application saves stuff can lead to really weird things. Some things might save before others. So pretend we're in a game and I press save. Maybe me, myself, my character, would save before the actual world saves, which means if I turned off the computer after my character saved and then rebooted it, only my character would load and the world would be gone, which is weird and that's bad. But also, it's what the application saves. So maybe when I press save, it only saves my character and that's on purpose. Or maybe it only saves the world and that's on purpose. So some things save and others may not. That leads to one of my favorite glitches, which is on another Roblox game, Lumber Tycoon 2. In the game, you just get axes, you chop wood, and you make money. And then you repeat the process a billion times. And I got a really rare axe, and I wanted to duplicate it. Duplicating is when you make another up. It has a weird saving system. So when you reload the slot, it basically saves it. However, the second you press it, it saves the inventory, and then a millisecond later, you have to drop the axe. Basically, take it out of your inventory, put it on the ground, which is right there. And then the actual world I was in saves, and then I reload it. And now, at the very bottom, you probably can't see, I still have my 2 axes, but now I still have the one on the ground. So now I have 2 of this super rare axe that I can give to one of my friends, and we can all have fun. And the best part about duplication glitches is because they're on lots of games, and saving is on almost everything. You might use Microsoft Excel or some other thing, and you have to save your document. I probably saved my presentation like 30 times before I'm actually presenting it. And sometimes it can lead to a bug that completely wipes the save. Or it can lead to a glitch, which I think is a good thing. Now, let's recap what I've been talking about. So, glitching is about having fun. I speed up the process. I jump over those paywalls. I don't want to waste all of my time playing a game that just is wasting my time. So, you can jump over those paywalls with these glitches and more. You can help out your friends and a bunch of stuff. So, the second part is helping others, as I just said. You can help out your friends and let them have fun by telling them about the glitch. Hey, they get a free axe or something. And you can also help out the developers that I was talking about because they need the money from these games. And so when there's a glitch that's preventing people from, or not preventing, but making people not want to buy whatever they're trying to sell, can lead to loss of money, which is bad for them. And telling the developers may make it less fun for me because now I can't get that 1,000 XP in Duolingo and beat my dad. But it helps them out because they're getting what they spent their time on. They made the game for me to have fun so that I'd pay to make it more fun. And that's it. Thank you. So, we hand it over to my dad.
Oh, good. Thank you. You're making me cry, man. I don't know how to follow that. That was awesome. Thank you, Declan. Seriously, I'm all teary-eyed. All right, so that was part one. It's a 2-for-1 special here. Also, I am now between you and the after party here, so let's just kind of keep this going, and we'll go straight into the party after this. I'm going to set the timer here for 25 minutes. See how it goes. So my favorite kind of presentations are a little bit more, again, it's like kindergarten was my favorite, maybe grade perhaps. So show and tell is my favorite subject. So I'll try to get, it's like there's a theme with Declan's presentation, lots of examples, a lot of video examples, so I'll have that as well. So if Declan is glitching mostly through iPhone and iPad games, I'm kind of usually mediated through these little robots that I have around my office. So this is a picture of me in front of the Tapster office in Oak Park, Illinois, just west of the city. I think this was on like January 15th or something like that of this year. It's so cold when you put on everything and you can walk around wearing swimming goggles and no one even notices because it's that cold. And you actually need to wear some kind of eye protection because even your eyes are freezing when it's negative 15. So it already was covered earlier, but my little highlight reel was we started the Selenium project in 2004. Long time ago. Declan was born 2 years later, in 2006. Started Sauce Labs in 2008. Started the Appium project in 2012, and then started Tapster. Left Sauce Labs, started Tapster in 2015. And one of the things that's maybe kind of a common theme in my career that I kind of realized that I have the curse of Cassandra, and hopefully that's changing over time. But the key thing about, if you're not familiar with the curse of Cassandra, Cassandra had the ability to predict the future, but that wasn't the curse. The curse was no one believed her. So occasionally, I don't know if you had these moments where it's like, I got an idea, and everyone's like, what? Get out of here. So this has happened a lot. I mean, I'm telling you, like web testing in 2004, everyone thought we were ridiculously, it was a bad idea. There was literally a career-limiting move to use JavaScript in a web app in 2004. I can go in a whole story about that. I won't. But I finally have learned that, all these ideas, anyway, I can commiserate with Cassandra. But over all these different projects, one thing that also, when I was trying to communicate what I was trying to work on, I would describe Selenium is like, it's like a robot, right? And this actually comes up a lot. There's other tools that are out there. It's not a rare metaphor, right? I would often use this slide. I think this is like from a project in Japan, which I can't find anymore now. The only time I do an image search for this, I only find my own presentations, which is very annoying. I think it was called Fox, like Foxx or something like that. If you know anyone who worked on this project, I'd love to give them the proper credit. This is not my robot. But now, I would say it is a robot, right? And this is the latest in, game playing robot technology here. They have And the hello world for code is like you say the word hello. But for me, hello world for a robot is, can it play level 1 of Angry Birds? And get a good score, too. Ironically, I have not found any glitches in Angry Birds itself. And so that's it, right? There's a lot going on with this little robot. It can touch anywhere on the screen, but there's also little actuators that can hit the power buttons on the side, things like that. So it's kind of like I'm dealing more at the, it's the intersection of the software and the hardware, but these robots are kind of needed when you're also kind of interested in the robot side of things. What I've also kind of described both like the projects I work on, and also I've got like art projects on the side, is if I had an artist statement, perhaps, or there was some kind of theme, I'd call this the reverse Tron. Selenium was this robot trapped behind your glass of your computer, and if the movie Tron, if you're familiar with it, it was a person who got sucked into the computer. The reverse Tron is to take something that was trapped inside a computer and take it out. And so I took Selenium out of the computer and made it a real-life thing that's now walking around, right? I'm pretty sure I'm not the inventor of Skynet, because no one's come back from the future to try to get me. So, I mean, it could happen in 5 minutes, but so far, so good, right? Anyway, so my kind of robot adventure started in 2011. This was the first robot that I actually made. And it looks kind of hacky, because it is. It's laser cut basswood. It's Lego compatible, actually. So the whole structure is Lego compatible. There's some Lego parts actually in there. I can kind of point them out. So there's some little stepper motors. Also made this on a laser cutter at Tech Shop, San Francisco. And this is, again, Hello World. This was the first time I've had a robot play Angry Birds. And I know what you're thinking. It's slow and kind of boring. And this is like the second time you've seen a robot play Angry Birds, so like, what else you got, right? But this is the first time. So one of the bits of feedback that I got, and this is now kind of another theme that I kind of see over and over again, is that it's slow, make it faster, right? Fast is always a feature. And so this was a couple of generations later, again, still Angry Birds, but it's a faster robot. And so, hey, not a horrible speed, right? But anyway, before I get into all the minutia, there's a certain level of like, why should you care about robots, right? And also, why now? Why should you care? And I touched on this earlier in the panel, but this is like the big punchline. You should all be thinking about this. Testing is getting weird. You can't just depend on the same user interfaces that you're responsible for to be there tomorrow, because they're going to disappear. The screens are going away, the mouse and keyboard are going away, everything's going away. But the software's still there, so you need to figure out how to test it. This is perhaps my favorite, this is not mine, this is perhaps my favorite video demo of a test automation sequence of all time, anywhere. I encourage someone to top this. I desperately want to see that. I'll put it in my presentation next time. I love this. So what are we watching? It is a team, I think they're in Australia. They're a consulting firm, and they were tasked with how do we test point-of-sale payment systems, right? And everything in this thing is just ridiculously awesome. Also, the fact that it's going so slow, that's a feature, not a bug, in the sense of there was a certain number of seconds that had to happen between transactions. It had to go to the server and back and process, and so they actually calibrated the speed of the train to be perfectly timed so they can test the next thing. They're also doing different kinds of different devices, but again, I think this is an NFC test where it didn't actually have to get swiped, it just had to get near the device. And the key thing about NFC testing, near field communications, is that the radio range, again, kind of studying radio waves starts becoming an important part of the job. It only is a couple of centimeters. So if you get it maybe a meter away, that's fine, and it's not interfering with the other devices. Anyway, this is up on YouTube. I love this thing. Right. This is what I do when I look like I'm testing, is I watch this video, right? And meditate on how I could use this in my job. I mean, I could give a whole lecture on this. The other thing I love is that it's, who would have thought? I would have loved to have been in the room where someone said, actually, I think this was in their blog post, their engineering blog post, where they said, I've got a train set, right? And where in any of our conversations, in any of our careers, where I've got a train set, like, won the argument, right? And anyway, I just love that. This is another, actually, this was filmed in New York City. This was a workshop that I did a long time ago. It was when I was first trying to figure out what to do with these workshops. It was a consultant. I think I can mention their name or their company. There is RGA, and they were doing Nike Fuel Band, which is no longer on the market, but it's a connected device. It's kind of like the Fitbit. And the point of the workshop was to build the robots that was meant to tap buttons on the phones. That's why I intended it, for. But they sent me this video later, and it's ridiculous. They put the fuel bands in the robot, and I'm like, why did they do this? They had to explain it to me what was going on. They were responsible for the app and the fuel band, and they didn't. So they're testing the app here by shaking the fuel band because they needed to make sure that it's got a built-in pedometer that when certain steps are required, that the user interface is updated, right? So even though I made a robot to tap buttons on the screen, this is still phone testing. Anyway, this blew my mind. I hadn't even thought about this. Anyway, if you go talk, different interviews with inventors of various things, they kind of knew things were getting weird and kind of awesome when these tools were getting used in different ways they hadn't even imagined. I think the invention of the laser, I think, was like that. I'm not saying that this is laser level technology here, but it kind of I was very amused. And same thing with selenium. Selenium's used in lots of interesting creative ways, and only a few of those things was intentional, right? So this is where things turns the corner from playtime to serious time. It's actually the reason I founded Tapster in 2015 is when Mercedes came calling, and they were trying to figure out how to test this app. And it's a long video, but there's only two interesting parts. It is a remote parking application. The app doesn't really do anything. It's kind of like a dead man's switch. You're telling the car that you're still there and not dead by drawing a circle. You're not driving the car. You're just saying, hey, I'm still here, I'm still alive. This is that. And also, apparently, this was needed for people who have ridiculously small parking spaces, right? I think it's a huge problem in Europe. Maybe not so much here. Maybe possibly a problem in New York parking lots. What was that? Oh. And then again, later you can kind of see this user interface. I think right at the 1 minute mark, he does the thing again, where all he's doing is drawing a circle. So this was the request. They asked me, can you draw a circle? That's it. that was the request. Yeah. It was interesting. It's why are you talking to me? Can't you draw a circle? Yeah, but they also had to test it on iPhone and Android. They needed 10 of these things. That was the key thing. It's they needed a lot of these. And this is what I actually came up with them. It was the robot itself that I had, but the key thing then was the software. And it's one thing to draw a circle on the screen. You just put all the pixels up there. But I had to make a robot hit all those points and then the next point on the circle. And they said it had to be a circle either starting clockwise or counterclockwise, starting anywhere on the circle. There were no graphics libraries, even though the circle is one of the most common things that are out there for a graphics library. I had to have the robot plot all those points, and not just at the points, but turn it into commands. So ironically, there's this weird duality between I'm asked to do a simple thing, draw a circle, and yet I had to get it mediated through all of this 3D printed parts and things like that. And so it actually ended up being kind of a homework assignment and something a company paid for. And I was, again, just beside myself, this is kind of ridiculous. So this is a little YouTube video of all the features I was asked to implement. I think the actual circle, and that's it, right? That was the piece de resistance, right? Hey. And so often, now you kind of know a little bit of the secret when I post a no context 10-second YouTube video. It's usually I'm trying to prove the point to some customer or somebody that, this happens a lot. I think where I've kind of found myself, my little niche among niches, is there's some conversation that happened right before they talked to me and they said you can't automate that. Or we don't know how to automate that, right? And so they come to me and ask that question, can we automate this? How would you do it, right? And so often the first deliverable is just proof that something physical in the universe could do that thing that you're testing. And I know I've seen this a lot, where a lot of the conversations happen of could we automate this? Should we automate this? But when they get down to yeah, we probably should, but that's going to be a 6-month research and development project, right? And they even happened with Mercedes. They said, I asked everybody what's the alternative, and they said, before we found you, we were going to dedicate 2 engineers, 6 months, and literally give them a box of Lego. That was what they were going to figure out on how to do this. And so at the last second, they found me. But so sometimes I joke, like literally, yeah, Lego is my competition. This kind of came up when the request was, could you control 2 robots at the same time? Ultimately, they were interested in text messaging back and forth to each other. Again, kind of like touches on telecommunications, the radio traffic, kind of what they were most interested in, but they had to have the traffic be generated by something, right? And so the robots provided that. And I thought at least for this presentation, like the moral equivalent of texting Facebook messages back and forth to each other was tapping buttons on GarageBand, right? I thought it would be a more interesting demo. So I figured, like, to prove the point that I can control 2 robots at once, I figured let's find a piano duet. Ironically, earlier the talk around lunch, right after lunch, was about all the stuff that we have, too much baggage. Well, because of this, I have lots of music instruments. I've got this huge backlog of music instruments that I want to automate with my robots. But it all started with this little demo. And now we already hated Heart and Soul, but now I really hate it because to get the simple funded. This particular robot, the request was to get to the Android bootloader screen. There was no, at least at the time, there was no other way to get to it. No fancy software things, or the cables were kind of weird. There's kind of some software ways you can do it now. But they had some very particular requests. And so that little video, kind of channeling my inner Stanley Kubrick there with the sound and everything for 2001, was almost like too subtle. Turning on the phone, animating kind of the bootloader sequence or bootloader options, and then turning the phone off again. So this is one of the things that we run into, a lot of people in the room or the developers you work with. Most of the time you're dealing with software APIs. And so where these kind of things come in is where kind of the software ends. And one of the key places where the software ends is where the device is off and you literally have to hit the power button, right? Again, same customer though, saw that and like, that's great, but it's too slow. This comes up a lot. When I change the designs, the first version's kind of slow. And so again, kind of a no context, no narration video that I just randomly put up on YouTube, kind of wanted to murder that complaint about it being too slow. So I swapped out the end effector, that's like the fancy word for the finger, with a solenoid. And now I've clocked this at like 800 taps per minute, which actually if I go back and I check all of the music recorded of all time, I think the fastest song is slower than this. So I still have a robot that can play music, but now like any music. Anyway, it does move around there. But anyways, so the customer wrote back and said like, okay, yeah, you got it. It's fast. One interesting thing, and I think Angie kind of hit on this morning, of like, there's a difference between what you can do if you had to enter 2,000 test cases, but it's so much easier if you write some code. It's just, a flick of the wrist, and 3 seconds later, boom, you have 2,000 things done. So what happens when you have a robot that can tap 800 times per second? You can test interesting things that probably have never been tested before in this particular way. This was some kind of little mini maker fair that I kind of was showing this robot off at. I've got this little app called, actually this is the way I test my robots, is I've got this little app that's like a lap counter. And you just tap it, right? And most people, if you're counting laps going around the track, you're probably only counting it up to 100 or whatever. But I thought, okay, I'm going to be at this maker fair here thing for a couple hours. I'm curious what'll happen. So we started taking little side bets, and I'm curious, this now becomes a little workshop for us. Like, what's going to happen when this hits 100,000? We all started taking kind of, interesting little conversations of like, is it going to make the font smaller and, extend out to infinity so I could run this up to 1 billion if I wanted to? Or is it going to be like a car counter where it goes over to 0, right? Those are the two main ideas. Or crash the app would be another good one. That was, that was literally the first time. So who knew testing could be so fun, right? It'd be so interesting. So I had some other of my little art project robots there. Actually, I think it's very subtle there, but this is automated fidgets spinning over on the right there. If you're curious about how you automate it, how do you test a fidget spinner? This was quite entertaining, right? So now the question then, okay, we broke the app in an interesting way. Does this even make sense? I've not, like Declan, gone back to the app developer to see if they, tell them about this, because I figured, like, again, there's that conversation of like, is this something we should fix? I don't know. Maybe if it crashed the app. Yeah, we don't know. Is that me? Oh, I don't think I have a phone call. Going, oh. Maybe if I've got my phone hooked up. Are you calling me? That's what I would do if I was sitting there. That's hilarious. Okay, so the other thing I get is like always. So besides make it faster, make it bigger, right? So this was the request from the customer. So can you test iPads, right? So I was kind of branching out. I took that smaller version of that robot that I had, and it now made the way bigger version. That is not me. He's calling you now. And so I figured, oh, actually, I was going to channel my inner Steve Jobs here. If you had the, I think this is like kind of like what the very first Mac revealed showed was the word hello, and nice little cursive, right? Nice also kind of duality between humanity and robots. It's like I think actually that's my finger tracing the word hello, and then I just had it play it back. But of course, presented this back to the potential customer, like, hey, we can do tablets now, right? And they're like, yeah, but can it go faster? I'm like, ugh. Like 5 minutes ago, you didn't even know if anything could be automated on the iPad. And they're like, yeah, that's great, but faster, please, right? So again, this is actually I just recorded yesterday because I'm still working on it. Fast and iPad was kind of eluding me. And the key thing I've learned about robots is like small things are easy and scaling things is, I mean, that's kind of a joke in software, but it's even worse in hardware. You can't just take a small design and scale it up because you run into all these other issues. Oscillations, different materials, ran into so a lot. If the smaller things I can get away with being plastic, the bigger things need to be metal because it just doesn't move. So this is the faster version. I kind of cheated a little bit. Instead of writing the word hello, you write the word hi, less to do. And this is just kind of a silly little website that does nothing other than just let me kind of have this Minecraft-like experience where I can click blocks. So again, now this is part of my emails to various people saying, okay, here is a fast-ish robot that can test iPads. Of course, showing Declan yesterday, he was like, Dad, that could go faster. Like, thanks, kid. It's always good to have a goal to shoot for. And so I think, having done, if my first robot was like 2011, it's now a couple years into it. It took me a while to kind of calibrate exactly how much of the future this stuff is. Especially, I remember really threw me off when I went to, I think showed off one of my robots at the Selenium conference a couple years ago in London. And it really broke my heart, actually. I'm not going to name them. But they were like, what is Jason doing at the Selenium conference talking about robots? Selenium has nothing to do with robots. Like, he's just abusing his position in the community to just talk about his little toys. Like, he should just go away. And that really hurt because, like, I didn't know if they were wrong, right? And so I think I went back a couple years later and I kind of realized, like, oh, actually, there is a place for this. But I do know that there is a spectrum of, like, not just automated versus manual, but also kind of like how real world it needs to be. You can run any, and I kind of would argue then, pontificating a little bit here, but like the end state for testing in the future, the distant future, there are two things that is going to happen. There's something basically, I call it, option A is the matrix. There will be a simulated environment that is so real world-like that you could run tests in that you won't know the difference between reality and that simulation. And it'll be so awesome that you can, test your radio gear or your user interfaces, or when it's like a device on the wall. It'll be such a lifelike simulation. At the other end, just not simulated, but real world reality, it's effectively Skynet and the Terminator, right? It's effectively a crash test dummy, but not just something that you put in a car and throw at a wall. It'll be a fully articulated, fully moving robot that could test and interact with any product that you make. So here I am predicting that yes, the Terminator will be created, and it'll probably be created by a testing company. Again, I'm pretty sure I'm not the creator of Skynet or Terminators, but if I was, I would be doing it, I swear, because someone needed to test some kind of Bluetooth device with their iPad, I swear. Anyway, it's totally innocent creation, origin story for why those robots need to happen. And so if you talk to a lot of developers, they're somewhere on that spectrum between pure simulation and pure reality, right? And some things can't be tested. Well, actually, maybe this is a very controversial kind of topic. How would you test a jet plane, right? So if you've got some kind of new design, the military and various aircraft companies, they spend millions and billions of dollars on the simulators because you can't just be crashing planes all the time into mountains or buildings or oceans or however, all the different scenarios that you can have. So sometimes like you have to go all in on the simulation. And when you talk to developers, like sometimes it's good enough for them is running it in the iPhone or iOS simulator or emulator. But at the other end of the spectrum, you have, I would say, like putting a phone on a drone and flying it to Times Square. It's kind of like those Verizon commercials of "Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?" Like the real world testing would be like putting a phone on every network, on every device, and putting it everywhere. That testing gets really expensive and kind of weird. And so every time I have these conversations, I have to kind of calibrate, like kind of where are you on how much simulation is okay versus how much reality, real world testing you want to do. And the real world testing, both ends of the spectrum gets pretty weird, right? Other things, pontificating, if this is the day 3 of the conference, the last couple minutes of it, of like we're trying to think about the future, one thing I think about is this quote from Jeff Bezos. A lot of words there, but the key thing is he's asked often what's going to change in the next 10 years. He likes to think about what's not going to change in the next 10 years. So just with my things, my little niche, these kind of questions come up, and I don't think these questions are going to change for the next 10 years or even 20 years. Should we automate that? Can we automate that? And hey, Jason, but can you make it faster? That is going to come up a lot. And I suspect kind of where you are in your journeys, the should and can we happen a lot. And also kind of where I look at my relationship with the community is that I think there's a famous quote about the inventor of the nuclear bomb, like they spent so much time figuring out how they could do it, they didn't spend enough time on asking should they. So I think that comes up a lot of the stuff, definitely hitting it home earlier with the previous talks about AI, like should we be doing these things and how do we do it ethically, right? But for me, I find it takes so much mental effort just to figure out how to make a little robot press a button. I really enjoy these conversations, these conferences, so I can have these conversations of like, should we be doing these things? How do we do these things ethically, right? Because otherwise I'm just spent just on the finger, the button pushing part of the problem. Also, now I'm a couple of years into it, I'm making kind of some fancy robots, but I encourage you, especially because all these projects that I've started, they're all open source. Tapster continues to be open source. All the robots are open source. I want to build a community around these things as well, and want you to play with these things as well. So one of the things, there's a couple of things that you can kind of take away from here, besides going and buying that train set, so you can do near field communication testing point of sale systems, which is super awesome. You can get this little thing for $22. It's an Arduino. It's super awesome. This is kind of like, there's the flux capacitor, makes time travel possible. This is the thing that makes like robotics possible. There's that USB, the shiny thing on the top left. That's you can plug into your computer, and all those pins, they call them header pins at the black on the top and the bottom. Those you can plug into motors and LEDs and all kinds of things, and that is your interface into the real world, if you will. And so Arduino has a great ecosystem, a great community. It's all open source, and you can use this as kind of your step one into kind of playing with more fun little toys. Also, it doesn't have to be building a physical robot. This was a project, this is kind of proof of concept that I showed off at the Appium conference in Bangalore just a couple of months ago. These are 2 Arduino Nanos sitting under there. But I noticed an interesting feature that came out just in the latest version of iOS, I think it's iOS 13, that you can now have as an accessibility feature, you can have a mouse. And I figured like, oh, well, if there's now mouse and keyboard support, I'm wondering if we could hack that and now just move the mouse around. Specifically, there's a version of Arduino that can pretend to be a mouse or keyboard. If you plug that into your keyboard, even though it doesn't look like a mouse, it can send all the electrical signals to say it's a mouse. And so I figured, oh, I wonder if I could hack that together. And so I hacked one Arduino that talks to my laptop, another one to talk to the phone, because I ran out of ports. I had to kind of wire them together over this little thing. Anyway, kind of, again, hello world. It's going to be Angry Birds demo, sorry. But I figured out how to get the Arduino to pretend to be a mouse, and now you can do some interesting automation. The key thing is kind of a little bit lost here is, especially kind of when you're trying to figure out how to, next version of Appium or Selenium or things like that. We're always kind of running into the limits of the provided APIs and SDKs that Apple or Google give you, right? And so one of the things that's interesting about robots, but also potentially interesting about this, is that now you're not limited. If you can fake out keyboard or mouse, you can automate things that weren't meant to be automated, like games, right? For example, where there isn't any under the hood something that Appium could get to. And so you don't necessarily have to go down a journey of building physical robots and 3D printers and stuff like that. You could just, if you just started playing around with the Arduino, you can start doing some interesting kind of testing interactions. And there's some more advanced things that you can kind of do. This is kind of like not that much, a couple of dollars more expensive. The Raspberry Pi, this has those pins that you can kind of plug motors and things into, but it's also a full Linux computer, so you can do all kinds of cool stuff there. This is kind of on my list of things to play with at work, where I can control the robots and the motors of the robots, but I can also plug in a camera into the USB ports on here and then do image processing and then use that image recognition to tell the robot where to go next. The other place to start, I would argue, if you really wanted to get kind of into this stuff, is Lego Mindstorms. It's a little bigger bump up from the Arduino and the Raspberry Pi, $350. I can help you workshop the conversation with your manager later if you want. I highly encourage everyone in testing needs to have a box of Lego Mindstorms. You're welcome. All right. And these are all the parts that you get. And with that box of Lego, and there's this other little thing. I've got 8. Actually, I think I own a bunch of this. I don't own these, but this is a monoprice MP Mini Delta 3D printer. The prices on these things are ridiculously cheap. So it's $150, cheaper than the Lego set. The thing is, here you actually can print more Lego pieces if you want. And this is what you actually have to do for this project. This is a project. It's EV3 is this project. It's like its own little distribution of Linux that can run on the Lego Mindstorms. And this whole set you can use with an out-of-the-box, off-the-shelf kind of Mindstorm set. However, except those 2 pieces in the front when it's holding the pen, those you have to 3D print. So between a Mindstorms kit, which gets you like 99% of the way there, and a 3D printer for $150, that gets you that kind of like last mile little parts that you need, right? So in this particular case, you need a little pen holder. Imagine in your cases that you might need some other little contraption. Anyway, so this is kind of similar to one of my earlier robots. They also have some interesting music choices. I think then I had to go get my own Lego sets, get this assembled, kind of figure out like, I need to check out my competition, right? I found little camera tricks here, trick photography. It's like a line from Three Amigos, right? They sped this up like twice. So it's, again, it's a slow robot, so I don't have to worry about it. But it's interesting. It's pretty accurate, and it's not bad for $350 worth of plastic, right? Anyway, so if you just got like a little 3D printer, Lego Mindstorms kit, you can get into mobile testing or drawing dinosaurs if you wanted to, right? Anyway, I kind of wish that for you, and if you want help with finding the budget for it, I'm here to help. Anyway, so thank you very much. I know it's been a long day and a long week, and I appreciate your attention. And anyway, looking forward to answering questions later and chatting with you all. Thanks.